like that. So Galena, yeah, wow. It's ruling the radio according to our friends at Rockin' Jim. They make the wonderful monthly magazine. I recommend you subscribe to that. Galena is often found in crystals. Sometimes you can find it with a lead sulfite, which would be like an iron pyrite, will run along with it, or some sort of a lead sulfite. Very inexpensive radios were made from this mineral, from these crystals, around the 1920s. They're actually natural semiconductors because of the amount of electricity that goes through these metals, especially metals like copper and non-conductive insulators such as glass. Scientists began studying semiconductors all the way back in the 1830s, and in 1874, German physicists observed the electrical resistance in certain metal sulfite crystals. They varied the direction of the current, so this thin little contact point between a wire electrode and a galena crystal could actually modify electric current and produce what he called point contact electrical rectifier effect. This enabled these transistor crystal radios to be built. Nowadays they use other metals with both copper and iron sulfides, zincs, and other different metals to try and create these semiconductors. But back then, galena was the first. The crystal lattice that is built in its atomic structure is consisting of, on the sulfur type galena, is sulfur, and that functions as a weak electrical conductor, but galena almost always has other metals such as copper, silver, and that helps make up the deficiency and allows this electrical lattice of free electrons and traps to help them move in only one direction. The galena mineral radio, again, was used in about 1900. Greenleaf Whittier Packard was the first one to be able to do this with a little bit of receiving. He called it crystal sets, consisting of long wire antenna, turning the circuit with two concentrically positioned wire coils, a carbon particle earphone, and a peanut-sized crystal of galena. That's how it all started right there. And this created a radio wave induced microcurrent, which could be carried and picked up and transmitted. The little flexible pointed copper was called a cat's whisker. This would be put across the galena crystal and be able to create this rectifier effect of a one direction and enable the loudness of the audible earphone signal. Crystal sets, these were an affordable alternative that could be bought for people for a few dollars, easily built from these components. You can see this picture here if you're on the video with us of this crystal set here from the 1920s, and you can see the thin little wire. If you blow this up and look, you'll see the little pointer and a little thing that looks like a bell on the top there. There's the wire between those two, and then the crystal is what that's actually sitting on. So there it is. The galena mineral crystal is a crystal that would be small, irregular, fragmented, larger crystal mass weighing only a few grams. This semiconductor galena crystal cost about 5 cents back then and was readily available at scientific supply houses. And you can still maybe even find those today. In fact, I think this article talks about that. In the late 1920s, it was estimated that 40 million crystal sets were used worldwide. The heyday was cut short in the 1920s, the late 1920s, by the improved mass-produced vacuum rectifier tubes that sharply reduced the cost of battery-powered amplified radio receivers. Became obsolete by about 1930, but as far as commercially viable. But in rural regions where people were still waiting for natural electrification, crystal sets even served as emergency radio receivers on many naval and merchant ships during World War II. You can see a little kit here called the Space Patrol Radio Crystal Set Kit. This was in the 1950s, kind of a hobbyist thing here, an educational tool available even today in a build-it-yourself kit and ready-to-operate receiver. Nowadays, you're not going to get the actual galena crystal. You're going to get what is called a synthetic germanium diode, a far more effective semiconductor than galena. So, of course, today they're much more improved. These diodes and digital tuners and dipole antennas and integrated circuits and wireless connectors and all this wizardry has made all of this much more advanced. Now, a beautiful gemstone. If you have the video here on YouTube, you will see these cabochons. One's a teardrop, one's an oval. It's a milky opalescent agate material, almost a chalcedony, but it is agate. And it has this beautiful marcasites in these crystalline, crackled, kind of rounded crystalline patterns that are quite beautiful and attractive. Now, one of the sad things, this is also from our friends at Rock and Jim. You can subscribe to their emails. They'll send these free emails to you too if you want, but I recommend getting the magazine. These are famous for what they call a flowery pattern. I don't know that I'd call it flowery, but it is very beautiful. It is got a very unique look. It's natural, but it's very modern type of a look to it. Actually, Nipomo is, and I don't know if I'm saying this right, it might be Nipomo. I think it's Nipomo. It is a rural suburban town at the central coast of California. Used to be a great rock hounding place. There's a lot of digging sites, but they're all on private property. And they used to let people go over there, but some of the rock hounds ruined it for everybody else. They trespassed, they trampled new crops, they didn't close the gates, they weren't letting the cows get to the water sources. So now it has been a few decades since anybody has been able to go get new material. Perhaps someday somebody will capitalize on charging a fee for people to go in there. But it is a marcasite. It has many agate characteristics. The favorites are golden plumes and clear agate. The agate can also be milky white and have translucent reds and browns. Quite beautiful. It looks kind of like a flat iron pyrite in a way. If you've ever seen marcasite in its native form, when it is forming in something, you can see that this is definitely what it is. When buying marcasite, it's hard to tell what you get. Many times the metallic marcasite is in spots throughout, giving it a Dalmatian effect. Other times you can find pieces from almost 90% metallic marcasite with a little bit of spider webbing agate. That's very beautiful. If you're looking for specific colors or grades, buying slabs might be the way to go, but there isn't a lot out there, so you can't be too picky, but it's probably better to spend the best money you can and get what you want. Some of it can be crumbly, and that's not good. So what do you need to do once you find a good piece is the slabbing and design preforms. You want to figure out how those clumps of marcasite are going to look in there. You probably want to try to load the saw with the flattest spots possible for the vice grip. And after a couple slabs, the patterns will appear and you will see them going different directions. Just saw from different angles if you can. Cabbing the material is not difficult, but there's a few precautions to use on your preforms. Marcasite on the outer edge of the rough rock that's been exposed to soil may be soft and crumbly, so trim that out of the way. Bench test ahead of time and come up with a design, and then that should help. Cabbing, the author here starts with an 80 grit diamond wheel, goes to a 60 grit soft resin wheel, and then, which seems backwards, I would go the other way. I would start with Yeah, I mean, because you want to start with, you want to go with higher grit, because a higher grit is going to be smoother. So, yeah, 80 grit. Don't use a brand new wheel unless you're very carefully, because that can make cracks appear. So, go kind of slow until you find it out with the diamond wheel. Then just go down with your grit. Start, go with the 200, 220, whatever you have, and then 4, and then 6, and so on. And if you have the higher, like the 14,000 wheels or higher, those will give you a beautiful polished look. If all you have is a 600 grit, then finish with some tin oxide, and polish it up the best you can. It'll look really good with the agate. Now the marcasite does tend to tarnish, so they say use a light polish like ZAM polishing compound. You would use this with a buffing wheel on maybe a Dremel or a buffing machine. So just be careful. And it says the oils from your hands and stuff can tarnish this. So, you might even want to try experimenting with coating of something. Otherwise, you're going to have to remove this tarnish from time to time. Okay, next, I want to talk about a wonderful place. YouTube, well, not YouTube, Facebook personality Cole Younger is a friend of mine. He lives in Arizona. He's taken me to Mineral Park. We've hiked up and down those hills a couple times, and other hills out there, and there is so many wonderful minerals and so much history. I recommend you go to the westernmininghistory.com and look up Mineral Park, Arizona, or any other areas that you want. They will send you these emails and with links to these wonderful stories. It's all free. They don't require anything. But it is a ghost town at this point. It is kind of a park. I was just told that you're not allowed to drive up there anymore. They've chained off all the roads, so better go early in the morning. Bring lots of water, because that is Kingman, Arizona, and it is hotter than the devil's hand. All right, this area was very notable for discoveries that started about 1870. And it's called Mineral Park for a reason. There is a lot of minerals here. It says the first mine that is really notable here was called the Mayflower, followed by the Keystone. And of course, they had a number 1 and number 2 mine. And then the settlement started about 1871. And then the post office the next year. You can see here a photo from 1877. There's about a dozen little shacks right there in the main part of town. I'm sure there's other little shanties out in the hills and such. You can still find debris and remnants from these old buildings. They have directions here. The town was very slow to grow early, but then it kind of took off. Milling was a problem, but because they had to send it all the way down the Colorado River up to the Gulf of California, up to San Francisco, and then all the way to Wales to be milled. I mean, that's ridiculous. But finally, in 1876, a modest 5-stamp mill was built. You can see the old, my friend has found some of the old crucibles where they would do their sampling, try to see if they were digging in the right directions for the minerals that they were trying to dig up and get. Silver, gold, a lot of molybdenum is mined there now. But yeah, lots of good stuff up there. Lots of turquoise and stuff. In 1877, the mines were producing significant amounts of both gold and silver. There you can see an old mill right there, the stamp mill at Mineral Park, Arizona. This is just a very rustic area. It became the Mojave County seat in 1877. And there was a courthouse and a jail by 1870. They had a restaurant, a blacksmith shop, a hotel, public school, stores, 4 saloons. By 1882, there was 3 newspapers in the area. But like many of these old mining camps, it was the Wild West, and it did eventually come to an end. But there was feuds where men had gunfights. People were fighting over claims, over opening letters. Actually, people were killed over something like this. Here you can see the main town there, some of the people poking their heads out, and people shot and killed over $1,000. I mean, it was just a crazy town. Kingman was established in 1882, about 14 miles to the southwest, as a siding of the Atlantic and Pacific railroads. They could not make or break towns back then, and quickly became clear that Kingman would grow into a regional population as Mineral Park was too far from the railroad to be competitive. The 1883 newspaper Alta Arizona moved to Kingman after being printed in Mineral Park for only 2 years. Although Kingman is now claiming some of the region's business interest, Mineral Park continued to grow until 1884. The population was about 700 due to a lot of Chinese workers that were there. That, combined with the town residents, made a pretty good population. A lot of the businesses that started to form down in the city would take some people away from the mining. Mining continued until the early 1900s, and the post office up there closed in 1904. It did get reestablished in 1910 for a short time, permanently closed in 1912. Mines have operated till the 1940s, and one 1963 open pit is still operating at this time. There's a picture of it right there, mostly for molybdenum. And yeah, it used to be a gold mine, but yeah, there's a lot of neat minerals coming out of there, not just molybdenum. They're getting a lot of other stuff too, gold. Here's some of the businesses that they talked about: drugstores, saloons. I mean, this was quite the town. It said at one time, they said they had the best of everything. Oh, sorry. I hope that didn't mess up my. Let me check this thing here really quick. Okay, it looks like it's still video recording, I hope. All right, let's move on here. Technical difficulties. Mineral Park had a butcher shop. Here you can see some of the cables that would go down into the mine. The steam-powered engines here would turn these wheels, lowering the miners down deep into the earth to go mining for gold and silver. Somebody's put a map here of places to find gold and silver. But this was a wonderful place. I'm going to tell you that the Tiffany Company had a turquoise mine there, where some of the fabulous turquoise of the early 1900s came from. Other turquoise mines scatter these areas: silver, gold, molybdenum. It's a chlorite district, so you know, if you know anything about chlorites, you'll know that that's a heavy mineralized area. Mineral Park, kind of, when I went to it, it starts up by the gold mine that you saw there. That's an open pit mine at this time for molybdenum, and some of the samples of molybdenum on turquoise are kind of rare and collectible. That originally was the area of Ikita Peak turquoise. It is a top 10 high quality, rare southwestern turquoise. It is one of the top 10 as far as any information that I have researched. Bisbee turquoise, of course, is one of the more popular ones and well-known ones. The Lavender Mine, of course, is so rare they sell it by the gram. But also Ikita Peak is very expensive turquoise, and if you were to find some that is genuine Ikita Peak, like my friend who does sell some from time to time, he has access to some of the old tailings, because that whole mountain is gone now. So there's just really no more left. So if you want to get some, you'll probably have to buy it off of someone like him, or you can go up there and hike around those hills and maybe find some after a rainstorm along some of the roads and trails. But be very careful. Mining areas are quite dangerous. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that. I want to go into patinas a little bit. Some of this information I'm getting from The Complete Metalsmith by Tim Mccreight, that's Mccreight. This is a great book if you're a silversmither, you want to do any type of metal work or jewelry work. It talks about enamels, polymers, metal clays, talks about the tools, the techniques. This is an awesome book. But let's talk about patinas. It's an important process in making metals have a different, unique look to them. A lot of times we think about antiquing the metal, we think about silvers, but there's so much you can do. And we're just going to talk about it for a few minutes here because I don't want this to be too long. Very important to clean your metal before preparation. Get rid of the greasy materials like steel wool and buffing compounds are one way to clean that, or use a pumice or sandpaper, Scotch Brite, or a scratch brush. Some people will dip it into a pickle solution. If you don't know what that is, look that up. When grease is present, you can use ultrasonic. You can scrub it with a solution of ammonia, soap, and water. Don't mix any bleach with it. Very dangerous. Remember, this is just for informational purposes, so do your research before you take on any of these projects. Wash the whole thing and then dry it, and make sure that water that it's clean, no sawdust or anything like that. Preservation, of course, some metals they don't really need a whole lot, like gold and platinum. They don't really tarnish or anything, but like silver, of course, will tarnish. Other metals will tarnish. They can oxidize, so you may need other things to preserve them. You might consider for a few metals, such as tin, oxidize to a stable film, but most metals will continue to change. Choosing a particular patina that we are singling out one point on the continuum and trying to preserve it. This change is, if a change is undesirable, the metal must be either returned to its original finish periodically by cleaning, scrubbing, whatever, or filing, if that's even possible. A hand film such as a lacquer will resist marring but can eventually be chipped away. A soft film such as a wax is more likely to be vulnerable to wear but will probably just smudge across a protected surface, keeping the film more or less intact. Articles to be worn, wax can be rubbed off on clothing. So this is a way to preserve it, is coat it with an oil or a wax or something like that. Now, lacquer. Only use top quality lacquer you can buy as a liquid or a spray at art stores or other supply. Some people use clear nail polish. If the lacquer needs to be thinned, to spread it out thinner, use lacquer thinner at a paint supply. You can get this at Home Depot. Apply a thin coat to avoid bubbles or trap dust. Porous materials such as ivory, wood, clay, etc. are likely to contain unremovable oils that will cause lacquer to bead or discolor. Test first. If the lacquer does not readily bond to the work, clean it off right away with a thinner. Acrylic plastic type is a substitute for lacquer, is sold as flexible, used to protect drawings from smudging. Typically used in aerosol spray, can be available at art supply stores. Follow the same guidelines as lacquer. This is for preservation again. Wax and paraffin, beeswax are used to protect metals. Popular commercial presentations are museum wax or Renaissance wax. To make your own, start with clean beeswax or wax from a white candle. Hobby stores sell wax granules for candle making that are reliably pure. One method of application is to warm the object and rub the wax over it. Another is to reduce the wax to a paste that can be rubbed on and buffed. To make this, melt the wax in a large spoon or disposable can using a double boiler for safety. That's where you have water and you put the can in the water. Pour it into turpentine using roughly a 50-50 mix. When it cools, the solution should have the consistency of toothpaste. Apply the wax with a thin, even layer. Allow several minutes for the solvent to escape. Buff with a soft cloth. Repeat several times to develop a durable layer. Furniture wax, such as butcher's wax, can also be used, but avoid heavy duty waxes like car wax. Now, applying, that's all preservation, right? Applying patinas, there's different methods depending on the size and the shape of the work. There's different solutions that can be layered on top of one another. So you will want to probably experiment with some little pieces to see what that looks like. Maybe practicing with cheaper metals first. But immersion is one way you can do it. If you've ever heard, if you've ever seen the antique silver where parts of it look black, this is done with liver of sulfur. You want to clean your work and then dip it into the patina solution, follow the directions, and retrieve it with some tweezers. You can make tweezers out of copper by a copper wire by twisting a loop and making two pieces down and flattening the ends so that they are like tongs. You can use chopsticks, different things that you can use to get it. You can get a wooden spoon with some holes or a plastic spoon with some holes. Whatever you use, just make sure it doesn't react with other things that you might use it with. And the temperature, it depends. Slightly warm is usually best. Hold the piece after you're done. Retrieve it with your tongs or whatever. Wear your gloves. Have your glasses, all that protection. And let it clean under some running water or rinse it several times and use fresher water every time. Spray, you can clean the work and spray it with a patina solution, sometimes at room temperature, sometimes additional heat may help. Just read the directions. Put it on a turntable if you want even coating. Put it in a cardboard box or something to catch the overspray. You know, don't do this in your house where you're going to ruin your walls, furniture, or floors. Place a fan behind you to kind of keep the not on full blast, just kind of on low to keep the air, fresh air coming to you, and then the other air going, you know, away from you. So this is something you want to do outside or maybe at the edge of your garage with the door open and the fan blowing, you know, maybe a door open on the other side, getting some cross air across there. The sun can warm the metal. There's another way. Avoid overheating. Use a hairdryer rather than a torch. Take advantage of drips. You might want that look, you might not. Some patina compounds will clog the nozzle of your hand sprayer, so keep that in mind. Label all bottles, always be safe. Now, brushing is another technique you can apply with just a brush or a sponge. Be sure and wear your rubber gloves. You don't want to stain your hands. Wear clothes that, you know, you're okay if they get destroyed. You can use a thinner or a thicker solution of patina. You can, it says here, to thicken the patina solutions, they can be applied without running and dripping. You can mix with a cornstarch, a flour, into a liquid patina solution to make a thick paste. Spread this on the metal where you want the patina. Wash it off with running water. Interesting effect is sometimes created by the fumes escaping from the lump. Vapors, airtight environment you will need for this work. Trap the chemicals in a tent, create a vapor lock there, allow the work to sit untouched until the desired effect is achieved. If possible, use a transparent container so you can monitor the progress of the patina. It is a time thing. It does a different amount of time, will give you a different amount of patina. Heat coloring, it's possible to heat color with a torch, but the hue of the flame makes it difficult to observe the color shifts. Instead, use a hot plate or stove, preferably in a natural light. You can get like silver to turn purples and blacks and blues with the right amount of heat. Very hard to get exactly what you want. You can try doing it a little at a time. There's an art to it. I've seen people do it. It can be done where you make silver have a purple, red, dark hue, but it's not easy. They say set the piece on a burner, watch it oxidize to the desired shade, and then quickly lift it off with some tweezers and then quench with water. There's a lot of different types of patina. Burying is another method where you can bury it with sawdust or leaves, and this would hold the patina solution against it and give it some different textures. You can wrap it. You can wrap something around, or you can wrap your material around something to get other effects. You can fume with green and blue-green. Suspend the work in a calcium carbonic environment. Create a closed space. This could be a deli container or a plastic tent, depending on the scale of the work. Use transparent material if possible so you can watch the reaction within this space. Place the work either on a pedestal or suspended. And then, depending on the shape and the work, also set a bowl of water and a second bowl of diluted hydrochloric acid or vinegar. Drop bits of chalk into the acid vinegar periodically. Allow several days to produce a color. Warm environments work faster. To increase the amounts of blue, spray the piece with salty water to create splotches of blue. Wet the surface with water and sprinkle on table salt. So there's all sorts of ways that you can use ammonia on copper and brass, with salt water on steel. Even urine can be used to cause different types of patinas. So you will want to research this more. There are a lot of recipes that you can use. There's scores of them that you can find in different literature of metallurgy and metalsmithing. A few of the basic ones are liver of sulfur. This, I'm not going to go into everything about how to make it. You can look that up, but this will give you a golden, scarlet blue, plum, gray, black on silver halides, gray, purple, and black on copper. The longer you stay on there, the more it'll be black. I can tell you that much. Commercial oxidizers, this gives you a silver black, black max, etc. This is black, no transitions of colors. Green patina, part ammonia chloride, 1 part, 6 parts copper sulfite, 60 parts water. Apply the solution to the metal and allow it to dry. Repeat several layers, allowing each to dry. Scratch brushing will alter the colors. Variegated green layers can be achieved. There's also the green patina number 2. This one's a little bit more detailed, which is a variegated green layer. You can do gun bluing, full strength by brushing or immersing on brass or bronze. Apply the solution to steel wool. And this is a commercial preparation available from most sporting goods. You can buy this at gun stores and stuff like that. Gray to deep purple will be your color. Barium sulfite. This is a mineral that you should be able to buy at a drugstore or online. It'll give you a scarlet blue to brown gray results that you can look at. There's quite a few other things that you can do for patina recipes. There's simple copper plating that can be achieved, and other coloring selections that you can do that are a lot of fun. So I hope I've given you a few ideas. Maybe you can practice with a little creativity and come up with some ideas of your own. Please do research on this, as these are a lot of chemicals and stuff. You want to wear all the safety stuff, and you want to be careful about your environment, or don't breathe this stuff in. Wear a mask and gloves and all that stuff. Wear old clothes. Don't let any pets get near any of this. If you have the waste, be sure and deal with it the way that is recommended on the labels and such. Don't try mixing anything with the ammonia like bleach or anything like that. That will make a deadly poisonous gas and kill you. So be careful, have fun. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, remember, rockhounds don't die, we petrify. And I am out of here.